This is our last panel. This one is about countering hate speech, alternative strategies, and initiatives. We have been talking about conceptual aspects for the past day and a half. We have been categorizing these. We have been discussing how it is perceived. Now, in this panel, we will talk about alternative strategies and initiatives in countering hate speech. That is our panel right now. I have distinguished speakers with us. Each presentation will be for 20 minutes. I have to keep time. We have to finish this panel at 2:30, unfortunately. Before every presentation, I am going to present the speaker. The first speaker is Alex Mahadevan, Director of MediaWise, Pointer's Digital Media Literacy Initiative, faculty leading AI initiatives and misinformation research. He co-leads the Empowering Diverse Digital Citizens Lab at Stanford University, which studies the impact of media literacy interventions on underserved communities. And Alex co-wrote Pointer's AI Ethics Guide, led its first summit on AI, ethics and journalism, and associated research papers. And Alex has led workshops on generative AI, consent verification, media literacy, emerging technologies in dozens of cities from Bangladesh to Wyoming. It's over to you.
I will, as soon as this gets working, I will try to... It started. Okay. I promise to not take up more than 20 minutes, hopefully shorter than that. As she said, my main area of focus is media literacy, but as we've discussed over the past 2 days, media literacy and the identification of mis and disinformation is inherently linked with hate speech and polarization. I think there is so much overlap. So while my main focus is in the mis and disinformation world, and specifically lately AI, I have found that media literacy strategies are equally effective at countering hate speech and disinformation. Specifically, I've spent a lot of time working with influencers and content creators in the US to address mis and disinformation, and with that, a portion of hate speech and polarization as well, so I will discuss that. But I'll start with, who in here has more than 10,000 followers on social media? No influencers. How about 1,000? Nobody with okay, 1,000 followers. 1,000 followers, okay. So you're what we would call micro-influencers, which can be very effective, as I will discuss. The history of influencers and content creators is linked very closely with social media. With Facebook coming onto the scene, everybody was given a microphone, so anyone could go online and reach hundreds of people, thousands of people, millions of people. And what we found is audiences trust their peers. They trust people who look like them. And on social media, that is what you found in your networks. I remember the early days of Facebook. Maybe some older people like me can remember, you would just post, Alex is at the library studying, or Alex is having a sandwich. But lots of people would interact with it. And that was almost a very early version of what we would come to see with influencers, who now have a huge impact on our information ecosystem. And with the rise of social media, it has created these niche communities that influencers are able to access and have a large amount of influence over. This is an image of Facebook Meta board member Dana White, who is the bald guy in the front who runs the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship in the US. And next to him is a accused sex trafficker named Andrew Tate, who is one of the biggest vectors for hate speech in the entire world. And you see a member of the biggest social media platform in the world, a board member, is hanging out with him. This is Donald Trump, the president of the United States, sitting down with Aiden Ross, who is a podcaster and influencer with millions of fans. He is also responsible for a great amount of hate speech, disinformation, and polarization online. And this, in the US, has been referred to as the influencer election. The winning candidate, Donald Trump, spent a lot of his time seeking out alternative media sources, including content creators and influencers and podcasters. He arguably spent much more time with them than he did with traditional media. And the reason for that is a Pew study found that in the US, 37% of people under the age of 30 get their news from influencers. So they're getting their news from people like Aiden Ross. They're getting their news from people like Andrew Tate. Creators know how the algorithms work. They know how to game the system. They know how to make content go viral. And that is because their livelihood depends on it. It is a business model. So they are incentivized to create content that goes viral. And another statistic, a study found that more than half of anti-Muslim hate speech on X was produced by only 6% of users. So this small amount of very influential people are shaping the information ecosystem, including a lot of the hate speech and polarization. But can they help? Can influencers, can micro-influencers help? And I think they can. This is an example of an influencer named 2-Bit Da Vinci. In the US, we had these massive fires in Maui, in Hawaii, and in the fallout of these fires, there was an immense amount of mis and disinformation. There was anti-Semitic mis and disinformation, and this guy put out this very long video that racked up millions and millions of views. And the headline is, "The real reason they happened." That is the type of headline, that was the type of video title you would see from a conspiracy theorist. So this is an example of co-opting the conspiratorial language and using it to create factual content. And this actually was one of the most popular videos on YouTube about the Maui fires, which is rare if you know about YouTube and its rabbit hole algorithm. There are a few different ways influencers are able to actually do good in the world, so like 2-Bit Da Vinci here. One is storytelling campaigns, so talking about how hate speech and polarization has affected their life personally. I was just talking to someone about how people love storytelling, they love heroes, so storytelling campaigns are very effective because people go to these influencers because they identify with them. They want to know about their lives. So storytelling campaigns are very effective. Educational collaboration. My organization, MediaWise, has done a lot of collaboration with influencers to have them create courses, public service announcements, and other really impactful materials I'll cover very quickly. Interactive challenges. On social media, people love hashtag challenges and other interactive. That's the cool thing about social media is people can interact with an influencer unlike they did with celebrities or athletes or things like that in the past. And policy partnerships and digital literacy workshops. So influencers can be very, very effective if they're talking to young people in person and working with politicians and policymakers to advocate for changes. So at MediaWise, we did a series of public service announcements around COVID-19. This is a very, very popular YouTuber named Tyler Oakley, not a journalist in any way, but he went out and talked about the spread of vaccine misinformation and how harmful it was. And so he was reaching a new audience. Actually, he has a very large LGBTQIA+ audience that traditional journalists don't have in the US. And so he was able to reach them. Here in Turkey, you may recognize the guy in the middle, Ismail Küçükkaya, did a series of media literacy workshops with us and also created a WhatsApp course. So that was for older adults and helping them identify misinformation. So he was somebody we knew was influential, millions of followers, and so we had him star in a series in which he talks older people through how to identify mis and disinformation. Our curricula is based on very applicable skills, like lateral reading, learning how to do an effective Google search. The Australian Associated Press worked with a lot of TikTokers on a very similar campaign ahead of one of their elections. And again, another local example that actually was used yesterday. Ece Temokyoran, a popular journalist here, was among the first who was part of this viral challenge about women smiling in images here years ago. And it's an example of an influencer, content creator, influential person who's able to start a conversation and get that conversation rolling. This is an example from the US. It's a progressive commentator named Sam Cedar, and he participated in a challenge where he sat down and debated 20 Trump supporters, Christian nationalists, and he debated them on a few topics. This is a video that's 1.5 hours long, but has millions of views by young people. And in this video, 1.5 hours, he spends a lot of time essentially trying to deprogram these Trump supporters in their Christian nationalist beliefs. It's very effective. And just a few more examples. I know I am getting close to my time, but another example of content creators and influencers issuing hashtag challenges. And this is actually a good example of counter speech too that has been a topic that we have discussed. So there was, those of you who may still be on X know that it is a very fraught platform that is filled with lots of hate speech, misinformation, and bots, as was mentioned earlier. So there was a racist hashtag going around that said "White Lives Matter." This was in response to the Black Lives Matter movement in the US. And so Korean pop groups, K-pop as they are known, you may be familiar, they're very influential worldwide, began encouraging their fans to take over the hashtag. And they hijacked the White Lives Matter hashtag with uplifting messages. And K-pop stars are also very, very good examples of influential figures that are able to shape the public perception around different groups of people in ways that we may not have seen in the past. Another example of collaboration that we did with an athlete. So we did a program in Guatemala where badminton is very, very popular. This is a Guatemalan badminton player who participated in the Olympics. And he did a series of videos for us where he taught people how to identify mis and disinformation, how to navigate deepfakes in the world of AI. And it was just an example of someone who had a very influential following. People identified with him as a national athlete and a national hero, but he was able to take that and use that to shape how people felt. And this was before an election. So a lot of the work that we do is ahead of elections. Earlier when we had worked with Istanbul Bilgi University on our WhatsApp course here, it was ahead of elections. So researchers have found that in-group interventions are very effective. Peer-to-peer learning has always been very effective, but studies have shown that if somebody looks like you, you are more likely to learn from them a lot better. So influencers who have audiences that look like them can be very, very effective communicators, not just because of how many people they reach, but because they look like the people they're reaching. What we found in our research of our courses with our content creators was after people participated in a course, we saw a 20 percentage point increase in their ability to discern disinformation. So on average, people were about 60 to 70% effective at spotting disinformation. After the course, that went up to the 80 to 90 range. Just learning basic media literacy skills from an influencer who they know and identify with. We found similar results and impacts here when we did a study in Turkey. We did a study in Spain and Brazil, and we currently have 2 studies happening. In terms of the strategies for working with influencers, I would highly encourage universities, civic groups, newspapers and publishers to look to influencers as solutions to the mis and disinformation problem, and very much the hate speech and polarization problem. The strategies of working with influencers, it's very complicated. The first challenge is finding someone who has shared values. Would the foundation want to work with someone like Andrew Tate? No, nobody should want to work with Andrew Tate or Aiden Ross or any of those idiots. But the thing is, you can find people who are influential who do share your values, and that's what we've done at MediaWise. It is a lot of work, and you have to spend a lot of time investigating these content creators. You have to pay them. So I said their entire livelihood is based around going on video and talking to people. So there is a financial incentive that they must get out of it. They must also know that they're making an impact. So being able to communicate your goals very clearly with them, and putting in contracts and protections. You want to make sure that an influencer sticks to your values, continues to share your values, and doesn't go rogue and start posting hate speech themselves. So that's why the vetting is important, but contracts and strategies. And then considering what type of platform, what audience you're trying to reach. You don't want to use a TikToker if you're trying to reach older people. You don't want to use someone who's influential on Facebook if you want to reach young people. The challenges ahead, I mentioned micro-influencers because they're becoming more important because in a question I asked yesterday was about how social media is becoming more decentralized. If you go on Facebook, you might spend more time in a very specific Facebook group rather than Facebook as a whole. But there are also platforms like Discord that are closed messaging apps where young people go to talk to each other. On Instagram, people are spending more time in group chats than they are. So the importance of influencers who have massive followings may not be as effective in 5 years and 10 years because there are so many different small communities. So that's a challenge we must think about. The world is still dictated by algorithms. So we are still at the whims of what the platforms want. And over the past 2 days, I think there's been a good, healthy amount of criticism of the platforms and how they address mis and disinformation. So that is also something that we have to consider as we employ the use of influencers, is that algorithms will still determine the success or failure. There is a reproductive rights influencer named Deja Fox in the US who was putting out factual information about birth control pills. And Instagram was pulling down her posts, even though they were factual, they were legitimate, because they didn't allow pharmaceutical sales or something like that. So again, these algorithms and these platforms will determine the success or failure. And as we have mentioned, platforms are abandoning all protections for marginalized groups, and so the effectiveness of these strategies it still needs to be studied in this kind of new world. I think you can actually still sign up. So that's all I have to say about that. Thank you. I'm a few minutes over, but if you want to sign up, you can still sign up for our WhatsApp course, and you can talk to Ismail about mis and disinformation if you want. I think it's still active, so I just tried it this morning. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. şunu da hemen
A quick reminder after Alex's intervention. In the entrance, on the table, you saw some printed material. Feel free to get a copy. These are the reports you might find interesting. Alex is also, by the way, a part of the network that we're talking about. Our colleagues are all a part of that network, and there are interesting pieces in the report. Please feel free to take a copy. That's very, very important in terms of countering hate speech. It discusses about alternative strategies regarding social media, other tools. There are some promising examples you can find in those reports. Please remember to get a copy. You could also have access to those in PDF format on Hrant Dink Foundation's website too. Next, Metin Bayrak. Since 2014, through Opus Noesis, which he founded, Bayrak has been working to promote applied philosophy in Turkey while also teaching various courses as a part-time lecturer at Galatasaray University and Istanbul Okan University. He conducts certificate programs in applied philosophy, philosophy for children, philosophy with communities, and facilitation at the continuing education centers of various universities. He's interested in philosophy, applied philosophy, alternative education, architecture, literature, and art. And look at this beautiful background. Welcome to this event on this beautiful spring day. Those who come from Istanbul, those who come from outside Istanbul. This flower is a symbol of Istanbul, the arrival of spring, mimosa, acacia, in other words. This is a great beginning, I guess. Special thanks first. Itadakimasu in Japanese. I'd like to say what I mean is what I'm holding in my hand is a publication, a report we have all contributed to in this report. Actually, I could also vividly see the valuable labor of the worker who printed this or the courier who delivered this here. But I could also trace back to the trees that had to be cut and the animals and the living things that were deprived of some of their rights. I also see this when I hold this in my hand. I think such a critical view about life means a lot to make sense of the context. We're subjects and we need to be critical thinkers. That's so important in terms of how we position ourselves in our world. That's how I'd like to begin. Page 89 of this report and onwards, 89 and onwards, together with my colleagues, Peter and other colleagues, not all of them are here. We talked about how to counter hate speech by means of different tools. We gave suggestions. And I have a radical stance here, with your permission. Let me tell you what I mean. I'm going to a little bit break the usual line. Encountering hate speech, collective conscience is so important, and I think this work is an indication of that. Let's ponder on this problem altogether. That's why we're here. I'd like to start with acacia, mimosa flower that symbolizes spring. It's vulnerable but resistant. It is telling us the spring is around, but it can resist even the strongest winds. It's just like social thinking. Sensitive, flexible, vulnerable, but resilient. People understand by means of language, believe we live and die by means of language. It's all about our conscience. Language. It is social. Language is social. It comes from the society. It's like our skin. It covers us. So reconstruction of language, changing of language, it takes generations. Our discourse shapes our thinking and the way society sees the life. I mean, it's all down to language. But today, language is shaped with certain images on the shelves of supermarkets, on the billboards, on the streets, and ads on the metro stations, fridges in our houses. They shape the language. The sounds in the city, this murmur around us, it shapes our conscience at different layers. They keep sending attacking messages to our conscience. How do we process these messages? How about our relations with others? And how about economics and politics? Unfortunately, these dominate those areas. And it disrupts our reasoning. The question is, as Descartes said, the hate speech creates obviously certain problems. With a philosopher hat and an educator hat, I would like to ask you to listen to the two instruments that I'm going to play as a metaphor. With two hats, I'm going to play and exercise this piece. Here I go. It's like a trio performance. Dialectic, well, if it's beyond two, well, we talk about trio. That's why this performance should be considered as a trio. After posing the question, I will suggest some hypotheses. These will be the framework of the discussion. Why is this meaningful? Because this is the guide. In the last part of the guide, you will find some helpful tools, picture children books, training, workshop, links, lots of resources. Art, creative resistance, active citizenship, approaches, all in the last part of this report. We need to enforce children. They should be able to criticize themselves. They should be active. Children, I mean. They should be positively engaged. So these are some good approaches, right? In my speech, I would like to talk about some theoretical concepts that you can also find in the guide, in the report. There are 10 hypotheses which will hopefully lead to a solution. Let me begin. Hypothesis number 1. Excessive stimulation on our daily life. Notifications, sounds, it's overdose, unfortunately. Excessively stimulated individuals cannot pay attention and they are turning into a reactionary creatures. They are anxious. They're swimming in the ocean of anxiety. Item 2. We are subjected to dominance, instructions, even before we're born. Starting from the moment we're born, we learn to obey. Every day we hear 2,000 orders, instructions that we are expected to obey as a child. It's unbelievable. And caregivers keep dominating children and uttering instructions and orders for children so they obey. It is like whipping. And we have less space for ourselves. So this makes us give up questioning. And when we grow up, we stop questioning. 3. Interneuron connections help us think. These are the connectors that help us make sense, make associations and connections. But if you make wrong associations in your mind, then you end up with the wrong information and you make wrong decisions. And this creates ethical, political, sociological, ecological problems, obviously. So that's what lies behind our behaviors. Item 4. Tutelage or dominance, it results in castration, So this weakens our critical thinking capacity and analytical skills are hampered. Item 5. Our mind has a weaker capacity to process information and we have difficulty grasping complex structures. So we're happy with simple things. Reductive thinking is what we have these days. So we make sense of everything in very simple terms, with religion, with easy to understand packages, easy to understand. Otherwise, even in the smile of a child, even in an egg, even in this object, you could make indefinite number of senses. 6. Where you live, culture around you, language around you, it shapes your neuroplasticity through connectors. These are chains on your ankles, just like Plato said. Without collective conscience, individuals cannot overcome this problem, cannot become free. If you want to be free, it's all eventually thanks to education, not the system. Why are we like this? We're like this because of education. It's a paradox, unfortunately. Item 7. Humanity evolving, but we're not aware of that. So we have to learn everything. Brainwashing, indoctrination through missionaries, ideological groups, this is their basic instrument to access individuals, to turn individuals into militia. People need to learn. Metaphysics book written by Aristotle refers to the need to know among humans. To live, we need to know. And to live is a desire. So we desire, we want to learn. To kill oneself, you can't kill yourself. You need something else that may kill you. 8. Learning theory, mistakes. So it's all about correcting mistakes. And in a learning research, the best way to learn is to correct mistakes. This happens in 2 ways. How do we see our mistakes? Either through experience. So you need to face some wrong examples. In 1983, after Dersim massacre, Kurdish people were forced to migrate, and through black propaganda, the government said Kurdish people eat humans, human flesh. And in different cities, people were scared of Kurdish people. But once they made friends with Kurdish people, they thought there was no reason to be scared. Let's say hi to Kopar, by the way. And the second way of doing that is to process information mentally. Imagine someone comes to you and says, "Oh, did you know those people eat human flesh?" Don't you think you won't be influenced? I think you're not going to believe in anybody who says that. As long as you have a critical thinking, do you have to believe in everything you hear? It's about your intellectual processing. Microphone, please. Interpreters lost the microphone.
Ses geliyor mu? Teşekkür ederim.
I was saying, life is a ball of problems, hurdles, challenges, and to solve those problems, we need education which teaches us coping skills. Of course, they need to be translated into real life experience. Well, 10. Item 10, it's the last one. 10th hypothesis. In this world, in the street, building, family, house, individuals turned into consumers, status quo, passive consumers. They have limited activity. They have activity, they are active, but in a limited space. So an ideology and products are imposed on consumers. Bear with me with this analogy, but it's like chicken in a farm. Those chicken, they're free, but they are only within the fence, in the fence. It's like being a chicken. That's how we are these days. We can't be real social creatures like zeitgeist. Governments are in alliance with markets. With their policies, they consolidate this regime only. Every day we are exposed to thousands of stimuli. Your brain, can it really process all of those stimuli? Let's talk about Jong Altung, who talks about positive peace. My 2 cents about that. Immunity system in the society is strengthened to so-called prevent conflict, right? But how do we could strengthen the immunity? To get rid of poisonous flows? How can we protect our mind? Let's talk about TRIO, biological communication, critical thinking and ethical viewpoint, the TRIO. Dialectic. Well, we need to talk about dialogical communication. It's feminine, actually, communication. You need to have a safe space to communicate. Every member of the society should be able to have their own voice, should become the subject of their lives. You need to have equality in relations in the society. 2, critical thinking, as I said. Who is wise, who's not wise? It's all about a landfill, garbage of stimuli. How are we going to filter? Thanks to critical thinking. We need to resist against manipulation. We need to have immunity against these poisons. As to ethics, how you perceive things, you should be able to notice manipulation by means of hate speech, and you should be fair. And to develop this skill, you need to discern certain things. Interest versus right of peoples. You should see the ethical problems. Especially do no harm principle. You should be able to, one should be able to understand that really well. The other one is in dialogical communication, critical thinking. Well, these two were technical, but ethics, it's more humane. So one approach brings together everything, which is philosophy for children, philosophy with children. This is P4C, philosophy for children approach, that brings together all these elements. This is one of the main tools we suggested. In order to have moral development in an individual, all these elements support each other. This is what we called P4C circles. These circles for encouraging critical thinking, questioning, to support moral development of individuals. It gives a safe space. Humans are subjects who know about things. People see what they have in their minds. Think of hallucinations. Inmates in prison. They start talking to themselves after a while. They hallucinate. In order to exist, humans need the other, someone. If we want to protect children today, if we want to prepare them better for life, they should get out of school. They should become active subjects. They should be a part of life, community, society. They should be in solidarity. They should experience life. Today, hate speech is so dominant on the streets and life, and it turns into our social conscience, unfortunately. And this individually impacts our own minds. It's all about profit maximization, right? Companies, markets. We shouldn't fold arms and wait for companies, X, Meta, governments to do that. We will do that. The others, governments, companies, they keep changing their policies. The only solution is social immunity system strengthening. Yesterday, last session, Susan talked about lack of content moderation in Meta and talked about collective moderation. So, well, maybe that's what we need. For the past 2 centuries, with this invisible hand, liberal ideology, maybe we actually need collective conscience. In every moment in history, people have known about eel oil sellers. We cannot cut something with law and regulations. Where do we stand in this discussion? Life is no more like a real life. There are subcultures, there are new languages that grow. So life keeps producing itself. There's dialectic approach, people trying to become subjects. So this is about positive peace. And this is about P4C circle, which needs strengthening. Pari, the tool introduced yesterday. What a good initiative. There are also other initiatives. And of course, they're not going to be a panacea on their own, as Didar Akar said yesterday. It's not a silver bullet. We should make use of technology, but we should remember we're the decision makers. That's us, not the technology. These discourses, we create them by creating provoked consent. We can't talk about real solutions. We exist with our emotions, react with our emotions, sentiments, pathos. And snake oil sellers will continue to do their job. They will always be in the market. So what can we do? So maybe we need to destroy and reconstruct education system. And in my opinion, for basic life skills, a set of basic life skills, ethics and critical thinking should be a part of the education system. That's the most important part of my speech. Homo socialis concept should be persistently emphasized every day, just like Coca-Cola advertising every day for thousands of people with billboards, just like Coca-Cola doing this advertisement. We should do the same. Homo socialis, we are Homo socialis. We live in society. We're such a species. We should communicate that message in such a strong way, as strong as Coca-Cola does their advertisement every day. We hear hate speech, conspiracy theories, trying to manipulate people. But critical thinking and ethics have to become a part of education, so nobody can manipulate us. So Istanbul, what is the most important part of Istanbul? It could be different parts. You can't say only one part is most important, right? There are different answers to this question. So, see, this is about concepts. It depends. In broader sense, such circles, Socratic talks and conversations, such debates, maybe we could create a new culture, don't you think? And maybe it could be an exit for public space, so we could have our own voices. That's what we need as a society. People can turn into subjects as an ethical creature. It's spring, beautiful weather, nature reviving itself, reanimating itself. Yes, there will be challenges, difficulties created by some institutions. I hope we always remember we have a collective conscience. And please keep up your hopes. Thank you very much.
Çok teşekkürler Metin Bayrak.
Thank you very much, Metin Bayrak. This conceptualization offers us a fresh perspective, and it also links it very well to our next speaker, because we will be talking about the learning programs that the Hrant Dink Foundation has been working on for a very long time. And it involves critical thinking, ethics, also addressed by Metin Bayrak. And needless to say, countering hate speech is at the forefront of designing these programs for the foundation. So I'm very proud to introduce my teamwork, Liana Erişsever and Aslı Yolcu. Liana Erişsever, she's from Mimar Sinan University, Department of Sociology, and later on she studied at Yıldız Technical University. She holds the Purple Certificate Program of Sabancı University with her project PDR Educational Material Design and Development. And she completed her master's degree in psychological counseling and guidance. She also took part in Ne Var Ne Yok Youth Project. After working as a school counselor at various schools, she has been working with the Hrant Dink Foundation since 2023 in learning programs. Aslı Yolcu received her BA degree from Mimar Sinan Fine Arts University. She worked in various cultural and art institutions in learning programs, curation, and exhibition guide positions. Since 2022, she's been working at 23.5 Hrant Dink Site of Memory, as well as Hrant Dink Foundation's learning program. Of course, it will be quite difficult to contribute after such insightful contributions, especially after Metin Bayrak's eye-opening contribution. So we discussed among ourselves particularly the question of learning programs and what role they play in countering hate speech. We have already provided you some information about Hrant Dink Foundation, but we would like to revisit the context in order to offer you why we needed this program, its activities, as well as the challenges. So since 2022, Hrant Dink Foundation has this learning program, but this is in fact based on accumulated outcomes of various projects that have been carried out over the years. That includes oral history studies, that includes research work. And I'm sure some of you have already been to 23.5 Hrant Dink Site of Memory. So this is housed in the former Agos newspaper office. And the Site of Memory has a special visitor program. I would like to share with you the various workshops we carry out at the Site of Memory, which are essential parts of our HDF learning programs. Inclusive language, democratic cities, rights-based life workshops, Sites of Memory. We focus on inclusive language, pluralism, and through these workshops we want our participants to learn from one another, to think of our own prejudices, to lend an ear to others' stories, and to also understand the power of collective decision-making. But we also offer a space for dialogue. And we, of course, would like to ideally see this space to be used for a social dialogue. At the heart of our activities. We have a discrimination, rights-based approach, hate speech, and we organize workshops both for children and adults. Adults group include mostly university students, but then we also work with secondary school and high school students. And on the screen you see our learning goals. First of all, we want to make sure that students discern discrimination. They also notice prejudices feeding discrimination. We want to reduce bullying, peer bullying. We want our participants to understand how discrimination works in practice and also gain a new perspective on approaching discrimination. We want our participants to have a better understanding of inclusive discourse and how they can transform discriminatory discourse into an inclusive discourse, and we want to build capacities towards this end. So in 2024, we reached out to 1,900 people. 1,200 of them were a young population from 12 to 24 years of age. This included civil society organizations, minority schools, private schools, universities, municipalities, and through municipality networks we reached out to young people. As we were preparing this presentation, we had one point in mind. Rather than focusing on workshops, we want to focus on the content of our learning programs. And how can we use our learning programs and their content as tools for transforming hate speech and in producing counter speech? So we wanted to work at micro level. We wanted to focus on individuals rather. And after each and every workshop we organize, we ask both written and verbal feedback from our participants. And then we also come together with students, their teachers. We also collect verbal feedback. And drawing from these input, we are trying to figure out how we can use this in transforming hate speech. Let me now give it to my colleague Liana. Thank you, Aslı. Aslı has just presented us our learning programs. She also introduced our learning goals. At the heart of our learning programs lie transformation, transforming the discourse, transforming the people. And as we already told you, we have some evaluation forms, and these forms include both open-ended questions as well as questions based on scale. We would like to share with you some of the feedback we collected. So, the first feedback category is lessons learned, and to what extent these lessons are reflected in the daily practices or professional life. So here we usually receive feedback that participants has gained more awareness, and we also receive feedback about recognition of hate speech, detection of hate speech, which also points to more awareness. We can also observe empowerment of individuals and also their nurturing hope for the future. Particularly
when we talk to teachers, we also see that they have more awareness now about empathy in the class. I would like to read out two specific feedback we received. So the first one, when I write a post on social media, I am now more cautious to use an inclusive language. So from now on, I'll be more careful as a teacher. So a next feedback I want to read out. This workshop helped me gain more awareness about discrimination. So I started to pay more attention to discriminatory discourse on social media. And from now on, I make effort to use a more inclusive language, an encompassing language. And the second category, feedback category, where we have more awareness on understanding what is discrimination or not. Here we talk with groups, individuals who are subjected to discrimination, and we also want to build capacities of people to have better understanding of discrimination. Again, I would like to share two examples. First, learning about the inequalities experienced by minorities. This was eye-opening for me. Now I have better understandings of rights violations. And the second feedback, now I have better awareness, more awareness in distinguishing hate speech and discrimination. The third feedback category, empowerment of individuals and gaining a more hopeful perspective. Every now and then we can feel very hopeless or helpless, but by taking part in this workshop, participants also get more hopeful about the future. Let me share two feedback with you. I found this very helpful in transforming hate speech. I also came to notice that when I am subjected to discrimination, I'm not always responding in the most constructive way. A second feedback, the workshop influenced our students very positively. I now believe that they can play better roles in the future, and students themselves became more confident. That was the feedback by a teacher. The fourth feedback category is deepening empathy and raising public awareness. We also received feedback in this category. Whenever a person is exposed to hate speech or discriminatory discourse, the participant is no longer remaining silent but responding to that. So it has two layers. Once our participants attend this workshop, their individual awareness is raising, but also they're becoming more aware about the community. I would like to read out the specific feedback. Taking part in this workshop was very helpful. It allowed me to interact with people. From now on, if I encounter hate speech, I don't want to remain silent. Second feedback I'm reading out. It was very helpful to have such an enabling and open atmosphere. I will do my best to be as attentive as possible, and I also encourage people in my circles to do the same. So the fifth feedback category is to foster the culture of debate. We want to have a dialogue-based debating culture. We want to cultivate such a culture, and we also received feedback in similar vein. We want to work collectively to identify problems, but also to seek solutions. It is quite important for us to learn about different perspectives, different approaches. And in order to bring about change, we need to think collectively and work collectively. I would like to read out two feedbacks from this category. First, we decided on everything by discussing. Everyone freely expressed themselves. Second feedback, this workshop experience was helpful for our students to effectively communicate with one another in a group. They could express themselves respectfully, and this whole process facilitated decision making and enhanced overall teamwork. And on this slide, you see another quotation by our participant. Another feedback from a participant who benefited from the workshop, and it also had implications in in his or her professional life, and how such workshops could also be organized at corporate level. And now let me turn to Aslı again.
Liana çok küçük örnekler verdi.
Because we're running out of time, Liana gave you small examples, but there are numerous examples of feedbacks about open-ended questions, about degrees, different degrees. So we try to categorize those. In the meantime, I should also say not every workshop was so easy as you could imagine. We faced challenges, lots of challenges. We also try to categorize these. You may have noticed or experienced yourselves. In some workshops, there was resistance among the participants, and they were defensive. What I mean is sometimes students, individuals, participants get defensive. They say they're not impacted by hate speech, they're not aware they are impacted by hate speech. They have difficulty understanding that. They get defensive sometimes in certain workshops. Those who work in the NGOs sometimes say they never do discriminatory remarks. So they don't have a depth in their thinking sometimes. Inclusive language usage. Well, not all of them are aware of inclusive language, especially students. During workshops, regardless of the agreements we make at the beginning of the workshop, they keep giving some examples of hate speech. They use exclusionary language. And the media normalizes this language. And people think it's normal. Unfortunately, these were some basic points we cover. By the way, during the workshops, in the groups, there are some dominant voices. Some participants speak less. Once, I remember, if there is, let's say, a leader student, that student may use discriminatory discourse, and the others follow suit naturally, and it's harder to break that circle. Some girls, for example, if they have awareness regarding gender, then things change a lot. They become active subjects, and they also inform their peers in the group. So in group workshops, there are sometimes those dominant voices, and they reinforce some thoughts. If that thought is a good one, it's good. They learn some concepts, they learn about transformation, and it needs to be adapted to real life. But it's difficult. Some students don't know how to translate it into a real life experience. Sometimes participants say they learn during the workshop, but they can't implement it in their work life because their colleagues make fun of them if they do, or they don't get a positive reaction. So leading change is not easy. They are hesitant because people make fun of them. We need to reinforce these messages. And during the workshops, there are emotional difficulties and trauma sometimes is triggered during the workshop. Minority schools, NGOs come and join the workshops. And there are also people who are subjected to discrimination, and these subjects are emotionally challenging subjects. And sometimes during the discussion part, disadvantaged participants turn into trainers themselves to help others understand their stance. These are the challenges actually I could summarize here. I think we're running out of time. And Liana will wrap up. So hate speech and anti-discrimination. Well, the workshops are quite helpful. We know just one session of training is not going to solve everything. Of course, we are aware of this. But we want you to understand this helps with inclusivity. Thank you. You please contact us by this email. Thank you, Aslı and Liana. Well, this was our last panel from Turkey, from across the world. We know people are a little bit hopeless, but we hope we gave you some hope in countering hate speech in this panel, thanks to these interventions. We want you to be hopeful. Thank you.